The moment Raven stepped into the hallway holding a tiny fox-eared toddler on her hip, my heart stopped. "Liam," she whispered, "meet our test kit." Before we dive into part 2 of this cozy HFY story, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next chapter in Liam and Raven's journey. 5 years of loving Raven had reshaped my life in ways I never expected. My apartment smelled like her incense now, warm amber and something wild. My mornings started with a sleepy foxtail across my stomach, and our evenings ended curled together on the couch beneath dim bedroom lantern light. We'd built a rhythm, quiet, steady, soft, human and foxwoman, goth and tech guy, night owl and early riser. Somehow, it all worked. But even after half a decade together, even after sharing a home, a life, and a heart, I still wasn't ready for what she asked one quiet morning. "Liam, do you think we should practice parenting before we try for a real kid?" The question came while I was making breakfast, just a normal, boring Tuesday. I had a pan of eggs sizzling. Raven was perched on the kitchen counter in her oversized black sweater, legs swinging, tail idly swishing like a metronome set to mildly anxious. She watched me crack another egg, her amber eyes soft and thoughtful. "We're good together," she said slowly. "Stable, happy. I feel safe with you, Liam." I turned, smiling. "I feel the same." A small puff of fur lifted along her ears, her version of blushing. She looked down at her hands. "And, I've been thinking about the future." That sentence alone was enough to make my heart skip because Raven didn't throw around future lightly. She grew up in a culture where promises weren't casual. Commitments weren't accidental. Words meant things, serious things. So I set the spatula down, leaned against the counter, and waited. Her tail curled around her thigh. "I think someday I'd like kits." My breath caught, not from fear, but from how gently she said it, like she was handing me a piece of her heart. "I'd love that too," I said softly. Her ears perked. "Really?" I nodded. "Someday, yeah. With you." The relief that washed across her face was so bright I could practically feel it. She scooted closer on the counter, her knee brushing mine. "But," she continued, suddenly hesitant, "we have to follow tradition." "Tradition?" She nodded solemnly. "Before Volpines have a real kit, couples do a trial week with a training kit. It helps you learn what kind of parents you'll be." "That sounds like a parenting hologram," I said, chuckling. Raven's lips twitched. "It's more like a magically projected toddler with its own personality, emotions, and complete lack of self-preservation." "Oh dear. God." "Exactly." I dragged a hand down my face. "And your clan sends one? Like Amazon Prime for chaos?" Raven snorted, trying and failing to keep a straight face. "Pretty much." I looked at her more seriously. "Do you want to do it?" Her ears dipped shyly, but her gaze was unwavering. "With you?" "Yes. I think we'd be good parents. We already take care of each other." That landed somewhere deep inside my chest. Her voice softened further. "And I want you to see what Volpine kits are like. I want to do this right." I took her hands in mine. "Then let's try it. Whatever comes, we'll handle it together." Raven's whole posture brightened, ears high, tail fluffing with excitement she tried to hide. "I'll message my clan. They'll send one tomorrow." "Tomorrow? They don't want to give us a week to mentally prepare?" "They think parents should never be mentally prepared." "Ah, so this is realistic." She laughed, soft, chiming, warm, and leaned her forehead against mine. "You always make scary things feel light, Liam. And you make ordinary things feel meaningful." She cupped my face with her claws gentle on my skin. "You're going to be such a good father. I can feel it." My chest tightened. And you'll be a wonderful mother. Raven's breath shuddered, her voice barely above a whisper. I hope so. I kissed her forehead. I know so. The next morning arrived far too quickly. I'd barely brushed my teeth when I heard Raven's startled yelp echo down the hallway. Liam, she's here. She? Who? I rounded the corner and froze. Raven stood at the apartment entrance wearing her black leather jacket from her lounge job, hair perfect, ears perked. And in her arms was the tiniest fox-eared toddler I had ever seen. Blonde hair, small twitchy ears, bright amber eyes looking directly at me. The toddler blinked once, twice, then let out a delighted squeak and lunged, tiny arms reaching. I barely had time to react before she grabbed onto my shirt with surprising determination, clinging like she'd just found her missing parent after years of intergalactic separation. Raven smirked, lifting a brow. Looks like Sprig likes you. I stared between Raven, the kit, and my own shirt now stretched out by tiny claws. What do I do? Hold her, Raven said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. I awkwardly cupped the small fox child against my chest. She nestled in immediately with a tiny sigh. Raven's voice softened. Liam, welcome to test parenthood. Sprig snuggled under my chin like this was the most natural arrangement in the universe, tiny fingers curling into the fabric of my shirt with proprietary confidence. Raven watched with a mix of smugness and awe, her tail lifting in a slow arc of approval. I think she imprinted on you, she murmured. I didn't do anything, I whispered back. You existed. Vulpine kits love warm-hearted people. You're very warm-hearted, Raven said, cheeks tinting an embarrassed shade of orange. Sprig squeaked softly, nuzzling deeper into me. Raven crossed her arms. Okay. I admit I didn't expect her to like you more than me immediately. This is deeply unfair. You sure she's not just cold? I asked. Raven rolled her eyes. Yes, Liam. The kid is not using you as a living radiator. Well, actually. She leaned in, sniffed Sprig lightly, and nodded. Confirmed. She likes your scent. Is that good? It's very good. Raven smiled softly. It means she feels safe. Something fluttered in my chest at that. Sprig suddenly wiggled, reaching upward with grabby hands. Up. Ah, I said intelligently. She's already up. No, she wants neck level, Raven explained, tapping my shoulder. Lift her a little. I did. Sprig immediately latched onto the side of my face, smooshing her cheek against mine with a satisfied hum that was way too cute for my heart's safety. Raven's ears twitched. If she ends up calling you Da before she calls me anything, I'm going to perish. I laughed, even as Sprig patted my cheek like she was sculpting me into a better shape. We'll make sure her first word is Ma, promise. Raven softened at that, tail giving a small, pleased sway. We moved into the kitchen to introduce Sprig to the sacred morning ritual. Breakfast. I set her gently into Raven's arms so I could start cooking, but as soon as her tiny feet touched Raven's hip, she let out a tragic wail. Raven recoiled. Sprig, I am your people. Sprig reached back for me with urgent little hands. Wow, I murmured. She's really decided. Raven slumped dramatically, ears drooping like wilted flowers. I've been rejected by an infant projection. This is going to be a long week. I scooped Sprig back, and she immediately calmed, letting out a contented murp. Raven put a hand to her heart. Okay, that hurt, emotionally. I kissed her temple. She'll warm up to both of us. She better, Raven muttered. Otherwise, I'm filing a complaint with my clan. Training kit is biased toward my boyfriend. Check. I grinned and got back to cooking. Sprig watched the pan like it was the most important scientific breakthrough of her short existence. I cut fruit into tiny shapes, triangles, circles, stars, mostly for fun. Sprig gasped with wonder at each piece. Raven noticed. "You don't have to make them fancy." "She seems fascinated," I said, handing Sprig a star-shaped strawberry. Sprig inspected it, solemn as a judge, then shoved the entire thing in her mouth. Raven blinked. "Okay, she loves you and your fruit geometry. I can't compete with that." I laughed. "It's not a competition." Raven did not agree with that statement. "Parenting is absolutely a competition," she whispered, dramatically. "It's just a mutual, loving competition." I bent down so Sprig could reach my cheek. She gave me a sticky strawberry kiss. Raven stared. I'm losing to a human." "You're winning at style," I offered, gesturing to her leather jacket. "Not enough," she muttered. After breakfast, the real chaos began. Sprig discovered my bookshelf. More accurately, she discovered climbing my bookshelf. "Liam!" Raven gasped as the toddler scrambled halfway up like a tiny mountaineer. "Do something." "What do you want me to do?" I said, arms half raised. I can't tell if she's in danger or just ambitious. Sprig cooed triumphantly from the second shelf. Raven knelt, calling out, "Sprig, come down. Come to Mama." Then she paused, blinking. "She's ignoring me. Liam, do the thing." "What thing?" "The human voice thing. The tone you use when you talk to fragile objects." I raised an eyebrow, then faced Sprig and said gently, "Hey, kiddo, can you come here?" Sprig immediately plopped down and lifted her arms toward me. Raven stared at me like I'd just performed sorcery. "How?" I shrugged. "Soft voice?" That was not soft voice. That was parental voice. "Liam Clark, unlock your secrets." I lifted Sprig off the shelf, and she wrapped herself around me koala style, sighing happily. Raven pouted. "Okay, this is fine. This is totally fine. I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous at all." "Raven, I'm jealous," she admitted instantly. I held Sprig out toward her. "Here, try again." She took Sprig carefully, rocking her a little. "It's okay if she loves us differently. We're a team." Sprig stared at Raven's face for a long, evaluating moment. Then she reached out and tugged gently at Raven's ear. Raven froze, then melted. Oh, she loves me. She just has an expressive style." I covered my mouth to stop from laughing as Sprig tugged again, this time gently petting Raven's cheek. Raven's tail fluffed, ears vibrating in joy. "I am her mother," Raven whispered proudly. "Fear me." By afternoon, we'd settled into a surprising rhythm. I carried Sprig. Raven narrated every tiny thing Sprig did. Sprig alternated between clinging to me and grooming Raven's hair. It was chaotic, yes. But it was also beautiful. And sometime around her tiny nap, curled in my lap, her small hand wrapped around my thumb. Raven sat beside me, head resting on my shoulder, watching us with soft, overflowing eyes. "You're going to be an incredible father," she whispered. I squeezed her hand. "Only because I have an incredible partner." Raven's tail wrapped around both of us, and in that warm, quiet moment, with Sprig's tiny breath puffing against my arm, it felt, strangely, wonderfully, like this was always meant to happen. Raven discovered that parenting made her dramatic in entirely new ways. By the second day, she'd turned the living room into what she proudly called an enrichment den, and what I privately called an obstacle course designed by a sleep-deprived interior decorator. Pillows, blankets, low stacks of books, a tunnel made from 2 chairs and a sheet. Sprig sat in the middle of it all, clutching a plush, moon-shaped pillow Raven had produced from some mysterious future kit stash she'd apparently been building for years. "You've been planning this, haven't you?" I asked, watching her arrange a row of cushions with surgical precision. Raven's ears twitched. I plead the fifth. Also, yes, obviously. Sprig tipped over sideways onto a pillow and giggled. Raven's entire face lit up. "Did you hear that?" She laughed. Liam, she laughed. "She did," I said, smiling. "You made her happy." Raven's tail fluffed proud. "Of course I did. I'm very entertaining." She knelt beside Sprig and started stacking soft blocks. "Okay, little star," she cooed. "This is a tower, and Mama is not emotionally ready to see it knocked over yet, so..." Sprig, naturally, smacked the entire structure into oblivion. Raven stared at the fallen blocks like they'd personally insulted her ancestors. Sprig burst into delighted giggles. Then Raven did something that surprised me. She laughed too. "Oh," she whispered, eyes wide with realization. "That actually felt good." "Letting go?" I asked. Watching something I made fall apart and not panicking. She looked at Sprig, who was now sitting proudly amidst block rubble. "She's teaching me already." I sat on the floor beside them. "She's teaching us both." Sprig crawled into my lap and shoved a block into my hand, clearly assigning me to rebuild. Raven leaned against my shoulder, watching as I stacked them slowly. "Do you ever think about what kind of child we'd have?" Raven asked quietly. "All the time," I admitted. "Probably stubborn, definitely kind." "That's you," she said. "And curious," I added. "That's you." Her ears dipped shyly, but she smiled. We built another tower. This time, when Sprig smashed it, Raven cheered with her. That evening, after we'd finally convinced Sprig to nap, Raven and I collapsed onto the couch. My entire shirt had been transformed into a canvas for sticky fingerprints and mashed fruit. Raven's hair had been restyled by tiny hands into something that looked like a wild art piece. "You look cute," I said. "I look like I lost a wrestling match with a tumbleweed," she countered. "A very stylish tumbleweed." Her lips twitched. Flatterer. We sat in comfortable silence for a minute, listening to the soft hum of the apartment. The lantern orb drifted lazily near the ceiling, its glow dialed down to soothing. "You know what I like about this?" Raven said suddenly. "What?" She turned to me, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "You haven't complained once." I thought back over the last 24 hours. The climbing, the sticky hands, the messy food, the broken block towers, the lack of alone time. "I mean, I'm tired," I admitted. "But most of my life, I was tired for no reason. Work, bills, noise, stuff that didn't matter." I glanced toward Sprig's sleeping form in the other room. "Now I'm tired for something that feels important." Raven's throat bobbed. "Liam." "You're important," I said simply. "Anything that builds a future with you is worth losing sleep over." Her breath hitched, and she quickly blinked away the shine in her eyes. "You humans?" she muttered, voice thick. "Always saying these simple things that ruin me." I chuckled. "Ruining you with love is kind of my full-time job." She swatted my arm, then immediately tucked herself under it, curling into my side. "You know," she said after a moment, "in my clan, we judge potential parents on how they handle minor chaos. Not big emergencies, just the little things. Like fruit on your walls and towers getting demolished. And adjusting when a kid prefers one parent for a while," she added quietly. I squeezed her shoulder. "Raven, she absolutely loves you." "I know," she said quickly. "I do, it's just, every time she reaches for you first, a part of me panics that I'm doing something wrong." "You're not," I said. You're the one making her feel comfortable. She trusts your space. Just because she wants me to pick her up doesn't mean you're less. Raven was quiet for a long moment. On my world, she murmured. My mother thought she was failing because I was closer with my father as a kid. She misread it. It hurt her for years. I don't want to repeat that. You won't, I said. Because you talk about it. You let me in. Her ears twitched, and she looked up at me with that unguarded, almost shy affection that still floored me after 5 years. You really think we can do this? She asked. I think we already are, I said. We're learning. Together. She pressed a small kiss to my jaw. You make it feel less scary. That's my secret, I said. I'm scared too. I just want it anyway. With you. Her tail curled tightly around my leg. Me too, she whispered. Around midnight, Sprig woke up from a nap she clearly believed counted as a full night's sleep. She toddled out of the bedroom, hair rumpled, clutching her moon pillow under one arm. Raven sat up. Hey, little star. Sprig blinked slowly, then marched straight to the couch and lifted her arms. Up, she commanded. Who's she asking? I asked. Yes, Raven said. We both reached out at the same time, and Sprig did something unexpected. She took both our hands, tiny fingers wrapped around one of mine and one of Raven's, and she pulled, insisting we stand. Raven's brows furrowed. What is she doing? I think she wants us together, I said. Sprig tugged us down onto the floor, then plopped herself between us, leaning her head on my knee and her tail across Raven's lap. Raven stared for a moment, then laughed softly. Oh, that's sweet. She's bonding us, I said. Raven's voice turned quiet. That's a kit's instinct. Make the den feel unified. We sat like that for a while, Sprig humming nonsense, Raven absent-mindedly petting her tail, me rubbing gentle circles on her back. It was simple, mundane, and yet it felt sacred. This, Raven said eventually, feels like a memory, one of the ones I'd put into a lantern. I smiled. Do you want to? She glanced at the glowing orb and nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I do. Raven whispered the words, soft and musical, and gestured toward us. The lantern flickered, capturing the moment. 2 exhausted pseudo-parents and 1 happy little training kit, crammed together on a carpet that probably had crumbs in it. When the light steadied, she looked at me. If our real kit grows up and asks what we were like before they were born, I want to show them this, she said. That we practiced loving them before we even knew their face. I swallowed around something warm in my throat. That's beautiful. It's you, she said simply. You make things beautiful. Sprig yawned loudly, then flopped sideways, landing half on my thigh and half on Raven's. Her tiny hand reached up in her sleep and grabbed Raven's sleeve. Raven's expression softened to something almost fierce in its tenderness. I want this, she whispered. Not just for a week, for real. With you. I rested my head against hers. Then we'll get there, one step at a time. She smiled into my shoulder. Tomorrow, we teach her a lullaby. And hide the bookshelves, I added. Raven sighed dramatically. Parenthood is sacrifice. But the way she looked at Sprig, the way her tail wrapped around both of us, told me she didn't mind sacrificing a thing. The next morning, Raven declared it was time for Sprig's cultural enrichment session, which apparently translated to, teach the toddler a lullaby, hope she doesn't eat the sheet music. Raven sat cross-legged on the floor, tuning a small stringed instrument from her homeworld. It looked a bit like a guitar, if a guitar had been designed by someone who thought curves were optional, and sharp angles were the height of aesthetic. Sprig sat in my lap, clutching the moon pillow like a beloved co-conspirator. "Okay, little star," Raven said softly, plucking a delicate note. "This is our nighttime song. My mother used to play it for me when I couldn't sleep." The melody was gentle, breathy, dreamy, almost like the sound of light through soft leaves. Sprig listened with rapt fascination, her ears twitching with each note. Raven began to sing, voice smoky and warm. "Vela Sci-Fi, Vela Rene." Sprig blinked slowly, then melted, sagging against me with a tiny sigh. "She likes it," I whispered. "Of course she does," Raven said, cheeks warm with pride. "This song is older than half our recorded history. Kits respond to it instinctively. It's like musical comfort food." She played through a few more lines, swaying the tiniest bit. Sprig swayed too. I, lacking any sense of rhythm whatsoever, swayed slightly offbeat. But Sprig didn't care. She giggled and grabbed my thumb, patting it like she was trying to sink me manually. Raven covered her mouth as she laughed. "Oh, my stars. She's trying to fix your rhythm. Liam, she's concerned." I looked down at the toddler. "I'm doing my best." Sprig responded by poking my chest and babbling earnestly, as if giving thorough corrective coaching. Raven leaned into me, giggling. "She takes after me." I kissed the top of Raven's head. "She definitely does." Her laughter faded into something quieter, softer. She kept playing, but her eyes weren't on the instrument anymore. They were on us. On Sprig leaning sleepily against my chest, on my hand rubbing small circles on the kit's back. On the picture we made. "Liam," she said quietly. I hummed in acknowledgement. Raven paused her playing, setting the instrument aside. She shifted forward on her knees until she was close enough to rest her hand lightly on my leg. "There's something I noticed," she said. "Whenever she fusses, you don't rush. You don't get anxious. You just breathe, and she follows." I shrugged slightly. "Calm helps her calm. I'm not always chill, but with her, I want to be." Raven swallowed, her throat working. Human calm is different than vulpine calm. It's not about instinct. It's a choice, and she feels that. She touched Sprig's small hand, tracing a claw tip gently along her fingers. "I feel it too." Sprig's eyes fluttered open, sleep blurry. She looked at Raven, then reached out with both tiny arms. Raven's breath caught. "She wants me?" "Of course she does," I said softly. Raven gathered Sprig into her arms, holding her close, rocking lightly. The kit curled into her instantly, pressing her cheek against Raven's chest. Raven's expression crumpled in the most beautiful way, emotion softening every angle of her face. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, she trusts me." "She loves you," I said. Raven blinked fast, her voice wobbly but warm. I didn't realize how badly I needed to feel this. "You're a natural," I murmured. "Do you really think so?" she asked, almost timid. "I know so. You're gentle with her, patient. You see her needs before she even shows them." Raven brushed her cheek against Sprig's hair, inhaling softly. I didn't think I'd be good at this. My whole life I felt too intense, too emotional, too much. "You're perfect," I said. Sprig murmured a tiny "mama" in her half-sleep. Raven froze. Her ears shot upright, her tail puffed, her eyes went wide and glassy. "Liam," she whispered, trembling. "Liam, did you—" I heard. Sprig shifted again, nestling closer. "Ma." Raven made a tiny, broken sound, equal parts joy and disbelief, and hugged Sprig like she was holding the entire universe. "Okay," she said, voice shaking. "Okay, that felt like a real moment. A moment that means something." "It does," I whispered. She sat back beside me, leaning into my shoulder again, her tail slipping around my waist like she needed the contact to anchor herself. "Liam?" she murmured. "Yeah?" She rested her head against me, her voice barely audible. "I think we could really do this," she whispered. "Not the trial, not pretend parenting. I think we could, someday, raise a real kid together." My heart squeezed so hard it almost hurt. "I think so too," I said softly. Sprig let out one last sleepy chirp before falling fully asleep across both our laps, tiny arms draped over Raven's stomach and my leg. Raven's hand found mine. Her fingers threaded through, her voice trembling with certainty as she whispered, "This feels like the beginning of our family." Raven didn't move for a long moment after she said those words. She just sat there, her hand clasped in mine. Sprig sprawled like a tiny starfish across both our laps. The apartment was quiet. Dim lanterns glowing lavender, the low hum of the heater, the soft, rhythmic breaths of the sleeping kit. It was one of those moments where the world felt balanced, whole, a little fragile, but perfect. Then a gentle chime sounded from the wall panel. Raven tensed. "Oh, that's the evaluation call." "Evaluation?" she grimaced. "My clan representative is checking in to see how the test parenting is going." I blinked. "They're watching us?" "No," she said quickly, horrified. "No, they don't observe. That would be intrusive. The kid is free form, but they do a mid-trial interview to make sure we're, not drowning." I looked down at Sprig drooling peacefully on my thigh. "Define drowning." Raven snorted softly. "They just ask questions, and Sprig provides input." We both stared at the toddler. Raven spoke in a whisper. "She better not mention the bookshelf incident." I grinned. "I'm pretty sure she'll only talk about fruit shapes." Raven's ears perked with pride. "She does love your fruit shapes." The chime sounded again. "Okay," she murmured, shifting Sprig gently into my arms. "Let's do this." She stood carefully, smoothing her sweater, trying desperately to look composed despite her hair still being 60% toddler-styled. I followed, cradling Sprig against my chest. She didn't wake. Raven pressed a button on the panel. Holograms shimmered to life. A tall foxwoman elder with silver fur, elegant robes, and the posture of someone who could shame mountains into sitting straighter. "Raven Vela," the elder said warmly, "and your human partner." Liam Clark, terrified and trying to look respectful. "Hello?" The elder's eyes softened, and the training kit sleeps peacefully, a good sign. Raven beamed. "She's been very sweet." I felt compelled to add, "very energetic too." The elder chuckled. "Kits are made with both sweetness and chaos. If she trusts you enough to sleep on you, that speaks highly of your stability as a pair." Raven's tail curled proudly. "Now," the elder continued, "we will begin the mid-trial questions." Raven straightened like she was preparing for an exam. I adjusted Sprig carefully, trying not to drop her or look like I was afraid of being judged by a space grandma. The elder lifted a glowing tablet. "Question 1. When the kit cries, how do you divide responsibilities?" "We alternate," Raven said immediately. "Whoever is closest responds first, but we communicate constantly." "Teamwork," I added, smiling down at Sprig. "We try to comfort her together when we can." The elder nodded approvingly. Unified presence is vital for emotional resilience. Raven shot me a tiny grin. I squeezed her hand. "Question 2. How do you handle moments of frustration?" I answered honestly. "We remind each other we're learning, and we try to stay patient with the kit and with ourselves." Raven added, "And when I overreact, Liam grounds me. He has this calmness that feels like a blanket. in a good way. My ears, regular, human, sadly unexpressive, felt like they were blushing. The elder, however, looked delighted. Question 3. What atmosphere does your den create for the kit? Raven gestured around. Warm, safe, lots of gentle lighting and soft sounds. And love, I said quietly, brushing a stray hair from Sprig's forehead. She doesn't have to earn anything here. She's just held. The elder paused, eyes bright. That is the foundation of all good den keeping. Raven's fingers slipped into mine. Final question, the elder said. If the kit were your own, how would you raise her? Silence stretched. I breathed in slowly, letting the answer come naturally. I'd raise her to be kind, I said. To know she matters. To let her be exactly who she is and help her feel brave enough to show it. Raven swallowed hard, voice trembling. And I'd teach her our traditions, our songs, our stories. I'd want her to know we're two worlds blended into one family. Sprig stirred in her sleep and curled closer to both of us, tiny fingers gripping both my shirt and hers. Raven let out a soft sound, half laugh, half emotion. The elder's hologram flickered gently as she pressed something on her tablet. Your responses, she said, are deeply harmonious. Raven's eyes widened. Does that mean? It means, the elder said with a smile. You are performing beautifully as a parental pair. The kit's emotional readings are strong and healthy. Her attachment patterns are optimal. She feels safe. I felt a quiet, unexpected swell in my chest. Raven looked at me like her heart was trying to climb into her eyes. But, the elder added, raising a clawed finger, the final evaluation will come after the trial concludes. For now, I encourage you to continue as you are. Loving, patient, present. Raven bowed respectfully. Thank you, Elder Visari. The hologram shimmered, then disappeared. Silence settled over the apartment again, warm and scented faintly of Raven's jasmine incense. Raven turned toward me slowly. Her face was a mix of proud, emotional, overwhelmed, and trying not to cry. Liam, she whispered, stepping closer. She said we're doing beautifully. I felt my throat tighten. We are. Raven placed her palm against Sprig's back, her other hand cupping my cheek as she leaned in close. You, she murmured, pressing her forehead against mine, are the reason. I shook my head. No, we're a team. Her voice softened even more. Yes, but you're the heart of it. Sprig let out a tiny kitten-like sigh, and Raven's gaze softened again, tender, full, certain. This, she whispered, feels like the beginning of our family. She said it again, but it hit deeper the second time, like a promise forming in the air around us. I kissed her gently, our sleeping training kit cradled safely between us. And Raven didn't pull away. She pressed closer, tail curling around my waist like a quiet vow. Sprig woke the next morning with the energy of a small sun. One moment she was sleeping between us, curled like a tiny, warm crescent moon. The next, she popped upright, blinked once, squeaked something that might have been a battle cry, and launched herself directly onto my chest. Oof! Morning to you too, I wheezed. Raven, hair a chaotic halo of bed fluff, blinked awake with one ear sticking straight up and the other smooshed sideways. Huh, what? Sprig? Why is she? Oh. She looked at my chest. Sprig was patting my face proudly. Raven sighed dramatically. Of course. Her first task of the day is to climb you like a tree. Sprig made a triumphant chirp. Raven rubbed her eyes. I'm not jealous. Okay, I'm slightly jealous. I can rotate who gets climbed, I offered. Sprig shook her head as if offended by the idea, then smushed her face into my neck. Raven glared playfully. I have been replaced by a mammalian barnacle. I offered her sprig with both hands. Here, shared barnacle. Raven scooped the kit into her arms carefully. All right, little star, let's... Sprig hugged her. Actually hugged, full arms around her neck. Raven froze, melting instantly. Never mind, I am chosen. Liam, you saw that, right? Immortalize that moment in your memory. I'm already filing it, I said. She nuzzled Sprig's hair, tail swaying with quiet joy. And just like that, the three of us slipped into our morning routine. Breakfast, brushing fur, toddler chaos. But with something different in the air. Something heavier. Something warm. Something final. Because today was goodbye day, the evaluation period ended at sunset. Raven had told me gently the night before, whispering it into the quiet. We'll have to let her go tomorrow. We tried not to think about it. We read Sprig picture books. She tried to eat too. We built block towers. She knocked down 30. We sat on the floor with her between us, keeping her busy with crayons, puzzles, and a small basket of shiny objects that Raven claimed were ancestral trinkets, but were definitely just polished rocks. All the while, Sprig stayed close. She kept one tiny hand on me, or one tiny hand on Raven, or both. Once she crawled behind us, grabbed each of our sleeves, and physically pulled them together until our shoulders touched. Raven whispered, "She's den bonding again." I whispered back, "She wants us to stay close." "She'll always want that," Raven said, voice soft. "Real kits cling to love." I held her hand without thinking. Then ours will grow up surrounded by it. Raven leaned her head on my shoulder, and for a moment we just breathed together, me, Raven, and the little not-quite child who had somehow filled our home with more meaning than we'd expected. Around late afternoon, Sprig began acting different. Not upset, not scared, just clingier. She insisted on being held, by both of us, at the same time. If I picked her up, she reached for Raven. If Raven picked her up, she reached for me. If either of us sat down, she crawled immediately into the center of whatever space existed between our bodies. Raven noticed first. She knows. Knows what? I asked quietly. That she's leaving soon. Sprig pressed her forehead against Raven's chest with a soft, sad hum. Raven's voice broke. Oh, stars, she really knows. I reached and stroked Sprig's hair. She grabbed my finger and held it tight. She's scared, Raven whispered. No, I said gently. She's trying to spend as much time with us as she can. That's not fear. That's love. Raven swallowed hard and nodded. We held her like that for a long while, the three of us curled on the couch in a loose tangle of limbs, hair, tail, and tiny kit warmth. Sprig's eyes drooped. Her tail twitched. She breathed tiny little huffs against Raven's heart. If this is how hard it is to let go of a projection, Raven murmured, how will I ever handle a real child? Because with a real one, I said, brushing her cheek, you won't have to let go. Her eyes shimmered. Liam, we'll raise them together. We'll watch them grow. We'll be there every morning, every night. Raven's forehead pressed to mine. Sprig, half asleep, reached up and pat our cheeks as if gluing us closer. I'm scared, Raven whispered. I know, I said softly. And I'm right here. Her breath hitched, but she steadied. This whole week, you've shown me the kind of father you'll be, and it makes me want this so much more. Sprig murmured again, and we both looked down. Her outline was faintly glowing. Raven sucked in a sharp breath. It's starting. No, I whispered. Not yet. The glow pulsed gently, like moonlight breathing. Sprig stirred, eyes fluttering open. She reached for Raven first, then for me, then pulled both of us into the tightest toddler hug her tiny arms could manage. Raven broke, just quietly. A soft, trembling sound, but real. Sprig looked between us with sleepy wonder, then whispered something that hit like a meteor. Home. Raven choked on a sob. She clutched Sprig close. I wrapped my arm around both of them. The glow brightened. Sprig pressed her tiny forehead to Raven's, then to mine. A kiss on each cheek. A tiny, gentle farewell. Then her form dissolved slowly, stars drifting upward like little pieces of her soul turning into light. Raven held her hands out until the very last sparkle faded, then lowered them to her lap, trembling. She, Raven whispered, voice barely holding. She called us home. I pulled her into my arms. She wasn't wrong. Raven buried her face in my chest, tail wrapping around both of us like a shield. I loved her, she whispered. Liam, I loved her. I know, I said, holding her tight. And that love's not gone. But she's gone. She was never meant to stay, I said gently. She was meant to teach us something. Raven looked up, eyes red and shining. What did she teach you? That I want a real kit with you, I said without hesitation. Someday soon. Raven let out a shaky breath, then leaned up and kissed me, softly, deeply, full of everything she couldn't put into words. When she pulled back, her voice was small but steady. Liam, I think I'm ready. Raven didn't say anything else at first. She just stayed there in my arms, trembling softly from the aftershocks of emotion. Grief for the little spark we'd let go. Hope for what came next. Fear and longing woven together in the warm, fragile way only someone who truly cares can feel. Her tail curled around my waist, holding me like I was a lifeline. I brushed my thumb across her cheek. Raven, you don't have to rush this. I'm not rushing, she whispered, shaking her head. I'm settling into something I've wanted for a long time, but didn't know how to admit. Her voice softened. With you, everything feels possible. I pulled her into my chest, again, letting her breathe, letting her gather herself. She clung tightly, fingers fisted in my shirt, face pressed into me like she needed to memorize the shape of my heartbeat. After a long, quiet moment, she pulled back just enough to look at me. Her silver amber eyes were soft but steady. Liam, she said quietly, imagine this apartment in a year. Okay. She lifted one hand, touching my jaw gently. Imagine a little den nest in the corner of the bedroom, with blankets and lanterns, and a tiny sleeping kit. I pictured it instantly. It didn't feel foreign or scary. It felt right. She swallowed. Imagine waking up and hearing little feet pattering down the hall. My chest warmed. Imagine teaching them to walk, she whispered. Teaching them to say your name. I cupped her cheek. Raven, imagine, she said, voice shaking. Watching them learn human lullabies, because their father sings them off-key and they don't care. Her words trembled toward a laugh and a sob at the same time. Imagine them looking up at you, she whispered, the way Sprig did today. Like you're safe, like you're their world. I didn't realize I had tears in my eyes until she brushed one away with her thumb. And, she added softly, imagine me watching that, and knowing I chose the right partner. I leaned my forehead against hers. Raven, you don't have to imagine that. We'll make it real. She inhaled shakily, then say it. I closed my eyes. I want a family with you, I said. Not someday in the vague future, real, tangible. Us raising someone together, teaching them both our cultures, watching them become their own person. Raven made the smallest sound, something soft and disbelieving and overflowing with love. She lifted one hand and pressed it over my heart. "This," she whispered, "is why humanity overwhelms me. You say things so simply, and they shatter me gently." I kissed her palm. Then she moved closer, climbing into my lap like she needed to physically anchor herself to the moment. Her knees bracketed my hips, her tail curled around my back, her hands on my shoulders. "Liam," she whispered, voice raw, "I want to build a future with you. A real one, a home that grows, a family that begins with us." I held her waist lightly, letting her guide the weight of her emotions. "I'm here," I said, "for that. For you. For everything." Her breath hitched. She pressed her forehead to mine. Then, this is the moment I choose it." "What moment?" She took both my hands and placed them softly over her stomach. "This one," she whispered. Everything in me stilled, not from surprise, not from fear, but because the gesture, simple, symbolic, so tender it hurt, felt like a promise being spoken in a language older than either of us. Raven's eyes glowed with something fierce and vulnerable all at once. "When we have a real kid," she said softly, "I want them to know they were wished for, wanted, loved, before they even existed." I tightened my hold around her waist, pulling her gently against me. "They'll know," I whispered, "because we'll show them every day." Raven let out a soft, shaky breath and kissed me. Slow, deep, full of the future she'd just opened her heart to. Not a kiss of desperation or fear, a kiss of beginning. When she finally pulled back, she rested her head on my shoulder, arms wrapped around me, body fully relaxing for the first time since Sprig faded. "Liam, I think we're ready now." I ran my hand down her back, feeling her melt. "Then our next chapter starts tonight," I whispered. Raven smiled against my skin, tail tightening around me in a warm, protective loop. "Together," she murmured. "Always," I replied. And with her curled against me, our hands still resting over her stomach, we sat in the deep, golden quiet of our home. Two people, one love, and the promise of something new forming gently between us. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains in lazy golden stripes, warming the blankets tangled around us. Raven woke first. She always did. And for once, she didn't scramble out of bed like a startled fox realizing she'd overslept for her night shift. No. She stayed exactly where she was, half sprawled against my chest, her tail wrapped around my waist like a sleepy, protective ribbon, her breath warm on my collarbone. She blinked up at me with hazy silver eyes, then smiled in this slow, soft way that made my entire chest ache. "Good morning," she murmured. "Morning," I whispered, brushing a stray strand of orange hair from her face. She leaned into my hand, ears dipping in contentment. "How do you feel today?" "Hopeful," I said honestly. Raven exhaled, relief blooming across her features. "Me too." She shifted closer until she was practically molded to my side. I could feel the subtle tremor of leftover emotion, too soft to be sadness, too warm to be fear. It was the quiet vulnerability of someone standing at the beginning of something big. "We should do something today," she said softly. "Something meaningful. Something that builds toward what we want." I kissed her hair. "What do you have in mind?" She lifted her head, eyes shining. "Let's prepare." "For?" She placed her palm over her stomach, repeating the gesture from last night, but this time with a certainty that sent a rush of warmth through me. "For someday," she whispered. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon." I wrapped both arms around her, holding her as the morning light settled around us. "Okay," I said. "Let's prepare for someday." Raven nuzzled into my chest, tail flicking in a happy rhythm. "Good. Then step 1. Breakfast." I laughed. The most sacred parenting ritual. She tapped my chin playfully. "Step 2. You teach me how to make those star-shaped fruit slices." She loved those. "She?" I asked with a teasing smile. Raven gave me a look that was both shy and defiant. "Yes, she. I'm manifesting our future daughter." My heart tightened in the best way. "You want a girl?" I asked, brushing my thumb across her cheek. Her voice softened. "I want a kit who looks at us the way Sprig did, full of trust, full of love." She swallowed. "But if our child is a boy, or a plural, or anything in between, I'll love them just the same." I kissed her forehead. Our child is going to be loved, no matter what. Raven melted into my arms once more, her breath slow and deep as she rested there. After a moment, she whispered, "There's something else I want to do." "Anything?" She looked up at me, expression soft with determination. "I want to prepare a space," she said. "Not an official nursery, just a little corner, something small, a beginning." My chest warmed. "We can make a whole section of the apartment if you want." "No," she said, shaking her head gently. "Just a corner. Something manageable. Something that feels like hope, not pressure." I nodded. "Then a corner it is." We started after breakfast. Raven pulled a small box from the top shelf of her closet, something I hadn't known existed. She set it on the bed and opened it slowly, reverently. Inside were tiny pieces of her childhood. A miniature lantern orb, a faded cloth with her clan's moon mark, a silver bead from her first ceremonial braid, a tiny carved figurine of a fox curled around a star. I recognized some of these from the stories she'd told me late at night, her voice soft and nostalgic against my shoulder. But seeing them laid out, the real objects, kept safe all these years, made it feel like she was offering me something deeper than ever before. "These," she said quietly, brushing her fingers over the items, "are part of my story. If we're building a space for our future, I want our child to know where I came from." I touched the silver bead. "It's beautiful." Raven smiled faintly. "I wore that on the day I was formally welcomed into my clan." She paused, fidgeting with the braid that wasn't there anymore. It was the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere. I tugged her gently toward me. "Now you belong here too." She breathed in shakily and kissed me. Slow, grateful, a little overwhelmed. "Then," she whispered, "let's build a place they can belong to." We cleared a corner beside the bedroom dresser and laid a soft blanket down, choosing one of Raven's that smelled faintly of jasmine and warm spice. She strung up a gentle violet lantern orb above it, its glow settling like a warm sigh over the space. I placed a small shelf beside the blanket. Raven arranged her childhood items on it, touching each one like she was introducing them to the future. "This," she murmured, stroking the fox figurine, "is for protection." She set down the moon cloth. "This is for peace." Then she placed the tiny orb. "And this is for guiding dreams." I added a small plush animal, one I'd bought for Raven years ago when she'd been sick and embarrassed to ask for comfort. "You're giving them that?" she asked, surprised. "If it helped you," I said, "it can help them too." Raven's eyes went soft and shiny. Her tail brushed against my leg. We stepped back to look at the corner. It was small, simple, barely a nursery, but it was warm, meaningful, a place touched by memories from both our lives. Raven slid her arm around my waist, leaning into me. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "It's a beginning," I said. She nodded against my shoulder. A beginning feels perfect. Later, we lay on the couch with a blanket over us, the soft violet glow from the new corner washing across the room. Raven rested her head on my chest, her tail curled around my leg through the blanket. After a while, she whispered, "Liam, do you think our child will be more human or more vulpine?" I ran my fingers through her hair. "I think they'll be whatever makes them happiest, and whoever they become, they'll have us." She smiled into my shirt, slow and full of love. "Good," she murmured, "because I want them to grow up knowing they were dreamed of in a room full of light." My heart clenched softly, warmly. "And loved before we ever met them," I said. Raven pressed closer, her fingers curling into my shirt like she never wanted to let go. "Exactly," she whispered. And in the quiet of our home, with the beginnings of a future glowing softly in the corner, we drifted into that peaceful, knowing silence that comes only after a decision made with your whole heart. Raven didn't fall asleep right away. She stayed curled against me, breathing slow and steady, but her eyes stayed open, watching the soft, violet glow of the little future corner we'd built. Her fingers traced lazy circles on my chest, her tail draped over my thigh like a warm ribbon. After a while, she whispered, "Liam? I keep imagining things." "Good things?" She nodded, lifting her head just enough that her hair brushed my chin. "I keep imagining her." "Our future kid?" "Yeah," she murmured, cheeks warming. "I know it's silly. She's not even a twinkle yet. But I keep seeing little pieces of her, like memories that haven't happened." I kissed the top of her head. "Tell me." Raven snuggled closer, voice barely above a whisper. "I imagine her ears," she said softly. "Little and twitchy. Not as big as mine were, but not small either. Something in between." She smiled faintly, and I imagine her tail swishing when she's happy. Maybe with that same little curl yours does when you stretch in the morning. I laughed gently. "I do, not curl." "You absolutely curl," she insisted, poking my side. "It's adorable. She'll inherit it." I shook my head. "If anything, she'll inherit your dramatic flair." Raven sighed in mock tragedy. "Oh no, we're dooming her to an adolescence full of expressive tail flaring." "And questionable eyeliner," I added. She swatted my shoulder. "Hey, my eyeliner is iconic." "It's something," I said, kissing her cheek. She flushed, but her smile softened. "And you?" she asked. "What do you imagine?" I hesitated, not because I didn't know, but because it felt strangely vulnerable to admit. Raven lifted her head fully, eyes searching. "Liam, tell me." So I did. "I imagine," I said slowly, "her reaching for me when she wakes up, the way Sprig did, but this time knowing she's ours." Raven's eyes shimmered. "I imagine holding her tiny hands, teaching her to speak, maybe in both our languages. Moon speak and human speak." Raven whispered, "She'll be bilingual from day one." I nodded. "And I imagine her running up to you after work and wrapping herself around your leg." Raven inhaled sharply, shoulders trembling. "I imagine her first steps," I said gently. "Her first laugh, her first time calling you Ma." Raven covered her mouth, tears pooling like liquid silver. "And," I finished softly, "I imagine the day she looks at us the way you looked at your parents, with trust, with love, with the certainty that she belongs." Raven didn't speak. She didn't have to. She launched herself upward and kissed me, not rushed, not urgent, but slow and deep and overflowing with the emotion that had been building all week. Her hands cupped my jaw, her forehead pressed to mine between breaths. When she finally pulled back, her voice shook. "Liam," I can't wait to meet her. My chest tightened. Me neither. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and laughed breathlessly. Look at me, crying twice in one day. If this is how emotional I am before pregnancy, imagine me during it. I'll be ready, I said. Oh? Raven arched a brow. You'll be ready for mood swings, cravings, nesting instincts, occasional growling. Raven, I cut in gently, brushing her cheek. I love you. All of you. Whatever comes. She melted instantly, her ears folding with that shy tenderness I adored. Sometimes I don't understand how the universe produced a human like you. Sometimes I don't understand how I got so lucky, I said. She hid her face in my neck, tail curling around my waist. Stop saying things that make my heart want to climb out of my body. Never, I whispered. She made a soft whine at that, half embarrassed, half delighted. A little later, we moved to the bedroom. The lantern orb dimmed automatically as the room sensed our weight on the bed. Raven crawled under the blankets first, then tugged at my shirt until I lay beside her. She rested on her side, facing me, tail draped across our legs. The violet glow cast moonlit shadows across her eyes. Liam? Yeah. If we do have a kid, someday soon. Her voice wavered. I want her to grow up knowing we loved each other first. That she wasn't created to fix anything or fill a space, but because our love overflows. I stroked her cheek with the back of my fingers. She'll know that. Raven closed her eyes, leaning into the touch. And I want her to know human love, not just vulpine rituals. I want her to see how you wake up early to make breakfast, how you take care of things without being asked, how your kindness is something steady and quiet, not loud or flashy. My breath caught. I want her, Raven whispered, voice trembling again, to grow up knowing her father was a good man. I kissed her forehead gently. And I want her to know her mother is the bravest woman I've ever known. Raven's tail tightened around my thigh, her voice cracking. Liam, we're really doing this, aren't we? Yeah, I said softly. We are. She curled into my chest once more, small and warm and vulnerable, in that way only trust allows. We stayed like that for a long time, breath against breath, heartbeat against heartbeat, letting the quiet wrap around us like a blanket made of promise. And then, in a whisper barely louder than a dream, Raven said, "Will you hold me while I fall asleep? Just hold me, like you're anchoring me to this moment." I pulled her closer. Always. She exhaled, slow and content, tail curling around me one last time before she drifted off. Soft breaths warming my collarbone, her hand resting lightly over her stomach. I lay awake a little longer, staring at the small future corner across the room. The faint, violet lantern glowing gently over the symbols of her childhood, the plush toy from mine, and the blanket waiting for someone who didn't exist yet. Not yet, but someday. Soon. Raven murmured in her sleep, shifting closer, her tail tugging me deeper under the blankets. I kissed the top of her head. Our den, I whispered to the quiet room, is ready for you. The lantern flickered softly in response, as if even the light itself approved. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe. More heartfelt human and fox girl stories are on the way.